What's up, y'all? My name is JR, and for those of you who don't already know, I'm a huge movie and TV nerd. If you're new here, I appreciate you taking the time to check out my channel. I hope you'll consider sticking around and joining the film community I'm trying to build here on YouTube. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about my first impression of Season 4 in the HBO's True Detective series, True Detective Night Country. Now, I'll probably do another video once the season concludes, but I wanted to get my initial thoughts out about this particular show, as it's been one that I've thought of as being very well executed, historically speaking. But before we get started, just so we're clear, this video will contain some mild spoilers. So if you haven't seen the first episode of the season just yet, and you don't want to know anything that happens in it, you might want to exit this video right now. And with that being said, no more wasting time. Let's get into it. True Detective is an American anthology crime drama television series created by Nick Pizzolatto for HBO, with Season 1 of the show running from January through March of 2014, Season 2 of the show running from June through August of 2015, and Season 3 of the show running from January through February of 2019. The fourth season of True Detective, carrying the subtitle Night Country, premiered on January 14th of 2024, also on HBO. And the season is set in the fictional town of Ennis, Alaska, and follows the investigation behind the disappearance of 8 scientists from a research station located on the outskirts of town. The season stars Jodie Foster and Callie Rice as Detective Liz Danvers and Evangeline Navarro. Issa Lopez serves as showrunner, writer, and director. This season of the show is the show's first without Pizzolatto as showrunner or writer, but he does still serve as an executive producer. Now, at the time of the making of this video, Season 4 of the series has a 92% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, based on 74 critic reviews, with a lower but still fairly respectable audience score of 72%. It has a Metascore of 78 on Metacritic based on 37 critic reviews, with a user score of 5.4 based on only 27 user ratings. And finally, it has an 8.9 out of 10 on IMDb, based on over 600,000 reviews. But I want to make it clear that the IMDb rating is for the series as a whole and not just Season 4. So here we are in the now 4th season of this show. It's taken us 10 years to get here, but here we are nonetheless. And this season of the show takes us to Alaska, about 100 or so miles north of what would be considered the Arctic Circle, to the fictional town of Ennis, right after the year's last sunset, as the town enters a months-long night. And the first thing you notice in the show's cold open, no pun intended, is a herd of reindeer hurling themselves off of a cliff as a nearby hunter looks on with a look of absolute bewilderment on his face. This sequence of events immediately piqued my interest, as it signified to me that we might be in for something a little more interesting than your straightforward whodunit type of murder mystery. And that feeling becomes even more certain when we're taken to the research station on the outskirts of town, wherein a group of scientists are researching, something. It's not made exactly clear from what I could tell. But as one of them is making a sandwich, apparently for social media, another of them begins shaking uncontrollably before turning to him and whispering, "She's awake," moments before the lights in the station go out. Now, enter Jodie Foster as Detective Liz Danvers. And let me just say, Jodie Foster is absolutely fantastic in this show. She plays the character with a brilliantly cold callousness, almost an emotionlessness, approaching her job with an unrelenting, logical mind that I think is mirrored in the absolutely unforgiving environment in which this story takes place. And look, I know it's only one episode at this point, but still, you can already tell she's going to be a really bright spot in this series. But she's called to the scene and she orders a search for the men, but does so with extremely tempered expectations. And then there's Detective Evangeline Navarro. the complete opposite of Danvers, if you ask me. Now, Navarro is tough for sure, but she's extremely emotional, especially when she herself takes a look through the research station and finds what she believes to be the tongue of a young Native woman named Anna, a woman who was the first murder case that she had years ago, which she takes extremely personally, being that she's a Native woman herself. Now, because of the obvious link between the two cases, these women will have no choice but to work together, despite their apparent disdain, I don't know, for one another, if you want to call it that. Because throughout the course of the episode, Danvers begins to understand that the cases are linked. So, again, in order for her to close her own case, the missing scientist, she may have to help Navarro close the case that she cares more about, which is the murdered young Anna. And that seems to be where we're clearly headed in this 6-part miniseries. Now, the rest of what happens in the first episode functions primarily as character development for the two women, as Danvers continues looking into the disappearance of the scientists, while also taking another look at Anna's case for good measure. But at the end of the episode, the scientists are indeed found, buried in the snow and ice out in the middle of nowhere. Now, this particular iteration of True Detective seems to combine both the horror and crime drama genres, making it kind of, part Mayor of Easttown and part Yellow Jackets. Though with only 5 more episodes to go, hopefully the questions we all have will get answered sooner rather than later. I have been on the record with saying that I think Yellow Jackets is drawing their story out way, way, way too long without answering the questions that we all care about. And one of the questions that I care a lot about in this particular show is, what's the deal with all the one-eyed polar bears? I'm sure it probably has some indigenous meaning that we'll find out at some point that's linked ultimately to what the show is about. So, obviously that's where I think that will be something that will come into play later on down the line here. Other than that, the show's first episode I thought was well organized, with it beginning, mostly beginning at the research station with the missing scientists and then ending with them being found ultimately. And Rose, played by Rose Aguino, I hope I'm saying her name right. If I'm not, I apologize. Seeing a ghost who leads her to a ritualistic site where she finds the bodies of the missing men. And that tells me that there is something more, again, here at play than a simple serial killer, which I happen to like quite a lot. In between all of that, the tension builds steadily throughout the episode, mostly because of the rocky relationships between the show's characters, which helps to give the story and the town of Ennis itself a sort of claustrophobic feel, which, again, I think just kind of makes the show pop. Even though it's more of a slow burn for those of you who, may or may not like that sort of thing. Like I said, the story, it creeps along, and you can see each character's personality existing while carrying a snow-covered mountain of reasons to be connected to the other characters or to be resentful of them. It's where the horror and the dramatic meet here, and I'm really excited to see how Lopez decides to get us from the start to the finish line. I would say so far, I'd maybe give this show an 85% or so, an 8.5 if you're thinking IMDb score. I certainly think it's a show that has the spirit of seasons past, but also a different flair that seems like it will serve the season quite well. The first episode managed to thread the needle between, again, the horror and drama genres almost perfectly, in my opinion. And so the inaugural episode of the latest offering of this greatly celebrated series seems to be just the beginning of what I am hoping will be a short but fulfilling ride. But what do you guys think? Do you think this season of True Detective will live up to seasons past? Or do you think HBO should have left this show to die on a proverbial vine? Let me know in the comments. And for those of you who might be new to the channel, be sure to like and share this video. If you really like the content, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. That way you'll be notified whenever I drop a new video. Also, be sure to go check out themadScreenwriter.com for more television and film reviews and info on my upcoming film projects. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. I got screenplays to write, and I'll catch y'all in the next video.